Let's go back to the phones, by which I mean Discord. We take calls on Fridays at davidpakman.com/Discord. We are going to go next to Julian in New York City. Julian, what's going on?
Hey David, I just well a couple weeks ago I heard your interview with Anand Giridharadas and the Persuaders book, which I
Anand.
on it, excuse
Yeah,
me.
I guess the emphasis is at the beginning. Yeah, I got it wrong
Anand,
too off the air with him. Anand.
Anand.
Yes, Anand.
Wonderful. Well,
Dear God.
I mean, fantastic, fantastic interview. It
Thank
was
you.
really, I thought, one of your best in the past year. But I read his book, The Persuaders,
Yeah.
and one of my favorite sections was democratic messaging or about democratic messaging. With
Hmm.
the recent wins in the Senate, the expanding the majority, all that.
Yep.
How do we keep pushing Democrats and I guess larger progressive communities to keep because the messaging is an issue. It's still an issue.
Oh yeah.
We won, but we still have this huge problem that is sort of like a I don't know. It's like a virus that doesn't seem to. I guess my question is, how do we build this incentive to keep pushing our community in the right direction?
Well, listen, when you say the messaging, are you talking about messaging from elected Democrats or from people ancillary to the Democratic Party, like progressive activists, or what messaging exactly are you referring to?
I think it starts at the top and then works its way down. I mean, it could start, anywhere from Bernie and then kind of flows down. It's this framing things, conceding these crazy um, made up points that Republicans say about either the border or whatever,
Well,
and
give me
then
an example of that. So like whether it's Bernie or whatever, what's a point that the left has conceded on the border?
like Republicans will say, okay, there are so many illegal immigrants are crossing the border, and then Democrats will say we're gonna be just as strong on the border, but we're also gonna make sure that new jobs and stuff is being so like uh, in countering that point, they're not they're conceding that they too we too want to be strong at the border, and that I
Yeah,
guess
I
that's
mean, I
just
think
one
that's a good
example.
example because there's an so there's two different issues here. It's the reason why it's really hard to say here's the way to frame this. And I'm not a framing guy. The truth is you need to figure out what would actually be effective here. There's like three different issues at the border that are from a rhetoric standpoint and a propaganda standpoint. One is the story that the day Trump left and Biden took over, something dramatically changed at the border that now allows a free flow of undocumented immigrants over the border. That didn't happen, right? So that's one issue
Mhm.
that you have to deal with. Number two is the issue of it is because of Republicans getting in the way that significant immigration reform hasn't been done. A lot of low hanging fruit could have been dealt with. DACA could have been dealt with a path to citizenship for those who came here when they weren't even adults. They were just brought here by parents. It's Republicans who have gotten in the way of that to some degree because they see, oh, we don't want to give Democrats that victory or whatever the case may be. So there's that issue as well. And then number three, there's the Republican, I don't know what to call it, but it's, oh, there's an election coming up. Well, then we should talk about caravans. And then all of a sudden, the day after the election, we don't mention caravans anymore. And there's an election coming up. We got to talk about violent crime by undocumented
Right.
immigrants. The day after the election, they don't talk about it anymore. So there's that brazen hypocrisy when it comes to when they even claim to care. It's a lot to deal with. I don't have the right messaging on it. I don't know.
Yes, yeah, and I guess to sort of surmise what I'm trying to say is it feels like we're always playing catch up with the messaging. They say something, they state something, it could be blatantly false, and then we don't even disprove it. We just go with it and yes and rather than really putting our foot down. And so with the recent wins, that I just want to make sure that we keep a pressure on
I agree with you. I just
elected
don't know
officials.
who it is that is well positioned. Like maybe it's Anand. I don't know. To give some advice about what should the language be around some of these issues to fight the
Yeah,
Republican framing, which is so dishonest and inaccurate.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much, David. Hope you
My
feel better,
pleasure.
man.
All right. Great to hear from Julian in New York City. Why don't we go next to Oh, I don't know. How about Rose calling from the United States? God bless the United States. Rose, welcome to the program.
Hey David, I owe you an apology for last time.
That sounds great. Let's start there. What did you do wrong?
I interrupted you a bit while you're talking. I have ADHD, and sometimes I do that.
All right.
We're talking about space, um, here's here's my point. Like, I've been feeling more and more that we're hurtling towards a future that most of us aren't even prepared for, let alone dreaming about. So, um, are you aware about like the general risk profile around nuclear proliferation?
Yeah, in fact, I recently read the book Precipice by Toby Ord, wherein he talks about existential risks to Homo sapiens and devotes quite a bit of time to sort of a nuclear, I don't know what you would even call it, a nuclear holocaust, for lack of a better term. Yes, so to some
Yes.
degree, I've read about it. Yes.
So there's been back in the 1960s, there was this project called the Nth Country Project, where they gave two grad students. One of them left, and so it was in three grad students in total. Recently graduated, almost no experience, a library. And access to basic technical help and basic calculations. This was 1960, so that meant computer time, and asked them to come up with a working schematics for an implosion style device. This was like the bomb used in Nagasaki, the Fat Boy. It's like a sphere of plutonium, and there's explosive lenses around it, and the explosion goes off in like precise nanosecond timing,
Yeah.
and it like compresses the sphere into a tiny ball and causes fission, and then boom. They managed to create a working model from scratch in 2.5 years. They created a working schematic from 2.5 years. It was meant to see how long would it take a nation state to do this, the nth country. At the time, only the US and the USSR could do it. Most of the information needed to build a weapon like this has always been open source. It's like 8-year-old technology. But the constraint has always been the materials. But now it feels like it's getting easier and easier and easier to do it. I was playing with ChatGPT,
Yes.
and I managed to get it to do certain things, including automatically generate certain things related to this technology, one might say, that it would have ordinarily taken me weeks of research to do. And it
Rose,
did it
I'm
in
not
seconds.
sure I know what you're saying, and I'm not sure if there's a question. Are you saying that you were in a conversation with this chatbot, ChatGPT, you were able to get information from it, which presumably it sourced from available information about how to build a nuclear device? Is that what you're saying?
It synthesized it. It took what would have been like weeks of synthesis and did it in 10 seconds.
Understood. And then it kind of like spat out information about how such a device might be built.
Yeah, the dimensions of different parts and so on, like how to calculate the dimensions. I wrote code for it, and so and how to simulate it. I feel like a lot of the conversation that I've had with conservatives and so on, and in the future that they imagine, it is really disconnected with the future that we have and the future that I'm seeing coming. Like when I saw that, it actually really shocked me. So
Yes.
I had this moment of future shock, Like
I
that
get
was
it.
my moment.
I get it. Rose, did you have a question today?
Yes. What do you feel about this? Is there a way to bridge that disconnect? Is there a
Which disconnect are you referring to?
between most people in the future that is coming and just trying to convey to them that, hey, the stuff we're fighting over, it's just not exactly the most prosaic of issues.
No, I don't.
When
I
given
don't have any insights as to how one might do that. I mean, I've talked before this idea where, if we made first contact with an intelligent alien species, all of a sudden we would all realize that our earthly problems are really quite meaningless in the grand scheme of things, and finding other intelligent life and war would end. And then, I've spoken to enough scientists who say, yeah, that wouldn't really happen. It would sort of maybe temporarily do that, and then things would go back to the exact same same debates and disagreements that we have, and people can't sort of more permanently be in that mindset. So I don't have any great insights as to how to connect people with the potential future we're hurtling towards. I wish I did.
Thank you so much. And I shall read the book. Thank you.
All right. There is Rose, very, very important message and making a lot of different claims, I would say.